Hey everyone, I am KoalaOK, and everyone calls me Koala. And I am a 3D artist from Chengdu of China. I enjoy creating stylized works using Blender. You can follow me on Twitter and Bilibili. I once participated in Boss Fight, the 7th 3D challenge, and I won second place. I wonder if you still remember my work. What you just saw was Ping-Pong Boy, which is my entry for the Kinetic Rush Challenge. I was pleasantly surprised to win second place, and received a lot of praise and positive feedback from everyone. Next, I will share some details about this creation, including the creative ideas, the process, and a few tips. I hope this can help you all, and I hope you can enjoy the next few minutes. Okay, let's get started. Let's talk about the beginning of my creative process. In the days leading up to the challenge, I didn't have any preparation or ideas. As the saying goes, if the enemy doesn't move, I won't either. A few days later, I started seeing some other artists posting their work in progress on social media. I saw many fresh ideas from others, and they were very interesting. But this is the 9th edition of the challenge, so I may have grown a bit tired of some of the creative ideas and presentation styles. I was feeling some creative fatigue, but I didn't have any new ideas either. I have a very old-fashioned habit. When eating at home, I like to turn on the TV and watch random channels instead of on-demand content from the internet. It helps me relax. When I saw the sports news reporting that the Paris Olympics were coming to an end, and the Paralympics were about to begin, so I think I had the seed of an idea. About ping pong. In China, you can't say you can't play ping pong. It's a very popular sport. But you also can't say you're good at playing ping pong, because there are too many people better than you, just somewhat familiar with it. So, I'll stick to a subject I'm familiar with and good at. After all, I'm too ashamed to even bring up our football. About Boy, at the beginning of the design, he was a one-armed boy. I thought he was special enough, and also very inspirational. After I made the basic model, I went straight to drawing the storyboard. One-armed boy trains hard at ping pong and finally defeats his opponent on the court. Then he runs to embrace his family. Everyone loves a winner, right? I even made the scoreboard model. The score had to be very close. That's how it's always done in movies. Up until this point, I was blindly creating based on my own imagination. It wasn't until I started looking for references about the Paralympics that I found him. Ibrahim Al-Husseini Hamatu, an Egyptian Paralympic ping-pong player. My imagined inspirational and passionate expectations were overwhelmed by a much more complex feeling. I can't quite describe the feeling. It's very complex. But at that moment I knew this was the character reference I wanted. So I made changes to the boy's character model. That way, I didn't have to read the arms and fingers. After finalizing the character, I began to adjust the story in the way it was presented. Earlier this year, I made another piece of work. You can take a look. A young man who moved to the city for work, missing the joy of childhood in the countryside. There's nothing more cruel than a boy growing up. So I chose the time travel dimension once again. For the other challengers, 5 seconds was just 5 seconds. But for me, 5 seconds is 10 years of training for the Ping-Pong Boy, and also my 10 years of work experience. Ouch. So, I finalized my main visual composition and storytelling. On a beautiful country road, the armless boy runs under the setting sun. He grips the paddle with his teeth, hitting the ball in the wind as time flies by. He grows up and appears on the world stage.
A boy without arms, angels have no wings. He likes to hear the sound of ping-pong balls. Whispering winds, bites the racket. I am your teacher, I am your friend.
The entire animation production process was actually very routine and linear. First, I used Blender's grease pencil tool to draw a simple storyboard and verify my story design with the timing and basic animation in the shots. It looked decent enough, so I could move on to the next step. I had to do a simple test for the effect. I needed to age the boy from 18 to 8 years old. I handled this animation process very simply and crudely. I scaled the rig controllers to get a basic boy shape. and then I corrected it using shape keys. Finally, I linked these shape keys with drivers. So they were controlled by the bones. This allowed me to easily adjust the character's evolution, rather than manually tweaking each model's animation every time. Then I downloaded animation samples and recreated the running animation loop. Fewer keyframes made it easier for me to control, using Blender's nonlinear animation, and merged and overlaid to actions to create the basic animation of the boy growing up while running. Next, I added actions other than running. I chose a few basic moves commonly used in ping pong. Tapping, getting a feel for the ball, building up strength. Chopping, using the opponent's power, unpredictable. Smashing, swift as lightning, powerful beyond measure. Looping, combining softness and strength, turning the tide. And finally, fate, do your best and leave the rest to fate. I never believed that effort always guarantees success. Like the 3D community challenges, I participated twice and came in second place both times. It was both lucky and a bit regrettable. That's fate. After finishing the keep poses, I had to manually tweak the transition animations. They mainly focused on the preparation, explosion, and transition phases of each move. Since the character has no arms, preparation moves for playing ping pong were transferred to the boy's torso and head. You can see that each of his moves has a fully prepared phase. For chopping, I designed a boomerang-style movement for him. Yeah, it's really cool, with a bit of a kung fu element. It also matches the high-speed spin of the paddle when chopping. I really am a genius. In ping pong, there are forehand and backhand moves. Choosing which side of the paddle to use is important. Based on the ball's return trajectory, I designed forehand and backhand shots for the boy. And also the movement of switching the paddle sides when receiving. This makes it look more reasonable. For the movement of the ping pong ball, to make its trajectory smooth, I used a curve path animation because the ping pong ball is very small, but it's part of the story. I added a trail to it so everyone can catch it within 5 seconds. It's simply a model with the curve path animation and curve deformation added. In my original plan, I didn't intend to render motion blur, but to make some movements look smoother, I added a lot of after images. Hey, that's fun and cool, but the production method was very simple. I just duplicated the model and animated their visibility. I have a principle. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, old school craftsmanship. The right shape appearing at the right time, that's good animation. The method doesn't matter to me. P.S. All the calligraphy used in this video was handwritten by my friend Zuzi Long. He is a senior 3D artist at NVIDIA. Not only is he great at sculpting Chinese dragons, but he's also skilled at calligraphy. Thanks, my friend. About the scene transition. If you understood what I mentioned earlier about, you can easily guess that I used a very direct and clumsy method. I directly created two scenes and lighting setups in the scene file. At the right moment, I moved out the models from the first scene and turned off its lights, and then moved the models of the second scene into the frame, turning on the lights. That's right, the method is that simple and rough. First, I had to time the scene transition perfectly, and add some detail animations during the transition. I wanted the moment of transition to be powerful and stunning. Convey the sense of speed in the scene and time. I added some simple models moving quickly in a staggered manner. I even turned the sun into a ball and hid it away, which created some really cool sparks. I also added some shockwave effects to give it a more powerful impact. I wanted this sense of power to extend outward, hitting the distant clouds and trees, so that all the elements in the scene would be connected. I also adjusted the lighting during the transition, mainly to highlight the silhouette of the character. This scene transition is one of the most important parts of my video, and I hope everyone will remember it. In the end, everything turns into a feeling, which is conveyed to the audience, and that's exactly what I wanted. Everything started from scratch. I created everything manually without using any assets or presets. Throughout the entire project, I only used Blender and DaVinci Resolve. I tried to keep everything simple and pure, staying away from heavy assets and complex workflows. Less is more. When simple things are done right, the result will not be bad. I used very few reference images, and I didn't make anything exactly like the references. I simplified all the details and realism. I prefer to use very few base polygons, which makes me feel relaxed and stress-free. The material handling was also very basic. Most objects were assigned simple solid colors, or simple material nodes from Blender. I only hand-painted one texture for the character's clothing. Some special objects animations were achieved through modifiers. For example, these change in class. I shaped them using subdivision and displacement modifiers, and used mask and bend modifiers to create their disappearance and deformation animations. The character's hair was also a basic model, and I used displacement modifiers to control the hair movement. This also looked quite good. More importantly for me, it was easy to understand and control. For the final scene, I also used simple models and solid colors, along with particle distribution to achieve the effect. The perspective in the scene was handled very subjectively by me. I wanted a dramatic perspective effect, including the pool table, where its position and scaling were dynamic. I just wanted them to fit the timing and perspective I desired. All the objects in the entire work were placed in a single project file. The final Blender file was only 16 MB in size. My goal was to create a stylized shot. I wanted to keep the image clean, bright, and vibrant. You can take a look at the result I've rendered directly from Blender. Overall, it met my expectations, but after going through a few hellish days, I was exhausted. The current image looked a bit too harsh. Every object appeared to clear, and looking at it for too long made my eyes tired. You'll be watching my work many times. I've always been thinking about you all. When I threw the sequence into DaVinci for inspection, I found that the movements were too linear. The two key actions I wanted to highlight got lost in a smooth rhythm. So I tried to adjust the speed in DaVinci. Through controlling the speed curve, I achieved the effect I wanted. These two actions stood out clearly. Not bad. But the frames of these two actions got stretched, causing those two frames to stutter a lot. I tried motion blur and optical flow in DaVinci, but since my work is stylized, all the movements are very subjective. It was hard to get a smooth transition. It even caused distortion and loss of detail in my image. So, I had to go back to Blender and readjust all the animation timing. Alright, the effect in DaVinci wasn't bad after all. I liked the combination of real and unreal effects. It looked more artistic and stylized. It was exactly what I wanted. Yes, it was a complete accident. I'm not sure if the judges or the audience will like this effect, but I was tired at the time and just wanted to finish it. So I took a gamble. I quickly did some more work in DaVinci, mainly color correction and lighting adjustments, to make the image softer and fresher. And finally, I submitted it. Overall, it met my expectations, but the process was full of uncertainties, and I made many last-minute adjustments. As I mentioned before, the character design changed from a one-armed boy to an armless boy. The story shifted from the boy's victory to an open-ended conclusion. In the middle of the process, I found myself lost at times. I unconsciously added many unnecessary action designs, scene changes, and special effect elements. The specific look of the scenes and lighting, I was constantly experimenting and tweaking. Even the final motion blur and artistic treatment were unexpected. Changes during the creative process are normal. It's related to my physical state, mood, sleep, and even the weather conditions. But being too tired can easily make you lose focus. Cause sometimes I'd have a hot pot, drink some beer, and sleep deeply in the next day and see my progress from the previous day with a completely different judgment. I could never create a perfect work. So I gladly accept all of this. No one is perfect, and neither is any work of art. The whole process was painful. I lost a lot of hair. The hardest part was the narrative animation. It wasn't about making the animation super smooth. I needed to convey what I wanted to express by quantifying it into animation elements for the audience. 5 seconds is a very short time. If it's a first-time viewer, what information can they take from it? Whether the audience likes it is very subjective, but at the very least, let them see it clearly. Autists are also selfish and arrogant. I often get immersed in the process, but fortunately, my workflow is simple enough. I can quickly output animation previews to review and adjust from the audience's perspective. Over and over again. Over and over again. Then I step away, eat some good food, drink beer, and continue the next day. It's a process of switching roles. I am an artist. I am even more of an audience member. Another challenging point was the final rendering style. I wanted to maintain a minimalist style. This is also something very subjective. After working on it for a long time, my eyes and brain get tired. So, at this point, I go for some good food and beer. That's right. My way of dealing with difficulties is eating and drinking. If there was a particularly difficult effect, my consistent style is, I would probably give it up. Those things aren't my specialty. Alright, I'm just bullshit. If you want to join this challenge, but can't find the time, you might want to check out the event page and take a look at the top 5 prizes. Maybe there's something you want. You can prepare models and rig sets in advance. I think every 3D talent is just a change in format. If you want, you can totally apply pre-made assets. I make a lot of works throughout the year, but most of them are quick practice junk. I just want to use the 3D challenge as an opportunity to push myself to make something relatively good. You can think like me too, and push your potential. But with these kinds of things, once a year is enough, no more. It's too exhausting for me. For some artists, if you feel like you're not good enough, I want to say, you're not wrong. Your work is just a pile of garbage. They also have many artist idols that I look up to. Compared to them, my work is also garbage. I teach some students Blender skills in China. On one hand, it's to make money. On the other hand, when I'm facing beginners, it makes me feel like I'm still pretty awesome. So, it all depends on how you compare yourself. I think improving the quality of your work is a long-term process. And how popular your work is also very random. As long as you love creating and keep creating non-stop, we'll definitely make progress along the way. That's the only thing we can do, and it's enough. Do your best, and leave the rest to fate. That's all for my rambling today. Thank you all for watching. Thanks to Clinton for his efforts on the 3D challenge, and thanks to the other judges for their feedback and suggestions. I hope everyone has a great life. Goodbye.
Ping pong dreams.